Welcome back to Live from Paris. It's time now for business, and for that I'm joined by William Edwards from our business desk. Hello, William. Also joining us in the studio is Frédéric Boulier. Hello, and thanks very much for coming in. You're a specialist in risk management and financial fraud, and you're here to talk to us, of course, about Jérôme Kerviel.
Yeah, let's just get a bit of a reminder about that. Of course, we've been hearing earlier in the news bulletins about how that appeal case is coming up today in Paris. The rogue trader lost nearly 5 billion euros for Société Générale in 2008. He was found guilty in 2010. He does admit he tried to cover his tracks, but he maintains that his superiors knew what he was up to, but they turned a blind eye, hoping that profit could result out of it in the end. Let's hear how he is likely to defend himself in his appeal case later, which starts later on today.
I don't understand why this case is called the Kerviel affair and not the Société Générale affair. It's obvious from what I went through and the evidence in the case file that my superiors had been informed and the bank knew what I was doing.
So, as you said, Claire, we're joined now by Frédéric Boulier, a nice actimizer, specialist in risk management and financial fraud. So, Frédéric, firstly, how did Jérôme Kerviel manage to lose so much money before he was noticed? I mean, he himself does admit that some deception was involved, doesn't he?
Yes, he admitted that very clearly, and the reports that came out, from Société Générale also pointed at this. Technically, he was, taking wrong bets, should I say, on the financial markets and covered his losses, or covered his positions basically with fake trades positions. In excess of 50 billion euros, we heard. So
he's effectively hedging, except without any hedges.
Hedging without any hedges. So it was an internal hedge, as opposed to something that was materialized on the markets.
Now, this case caused outrage nationally. Have there been any changes to the banking system, the financial system, since then that could prevent something like this happening again? Well,
not quite. There is yet to be adopted, some sort of, specific regulation to curb rogue trading. There is already something in the regulation, for example, in France, around, the more generic operational risk, and all banks have to manage their risk properly. That's a given. But there isn't anything, right, exactly tackling the rogue trading issue as such, which is a form of operational risk.
Now, what I found strange is that, of course, Société Générale ended up losing, like we said, nearly 5 billion euros through this. Why is regulation needed to stop banks, to get banks to tighten up on this sort of thing when losses like that are a prospect?
Yeah, but I guess, if you ask any firm or any bank, investment bank in the world, you will ask them, are you secure in terms of, how your dealers, traders operate, and they will tell you, oh yes, we are, until, something like what happened at SocGen or UBS or JP Morgan actually happens. So I think they believe they're doing the right thing, but in essence, some of them are not, and it's just a question of time before they get hit.
But do you think, is that not a big enough incentive that they could face losses of that size? Would rules and regulations make any more difference than a potential massive loss of that scale?
Yeah, you're completely right. Here the issue is more the amount of money that they're likely to lose. In term, when something like that hits. But I think regulators should take a much closer look at how they actually operate in terms of operational risk in trading rooms, and come up with very much more specific regulations to tackle that. But you're right, the main incentive should be the money that they're likely to use. 5 billion is an awful lot of money, and if you remember what happened a few years ago, before this whole thing went public, SocGen had to seek private capital increase to make sure that they had enough fundings, enough capital to survive the crisis.
Okay, Frédéric Boulier, thank you very much for joining us this morning.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming in. Now, William, we're going to talk about the Eurozone debt crisis. A lot of people might have thought that the next country to be in need of a bailout could be Spain, but in fact, we might get a bit of a surprise there.
Yeah, we've been hearing a lot more about Cyprus over the weekend, of course, a much smaller economy than Spain. But the head of the country's central bank did say that they will seek EU aid if necessary, and that is becoming more and more likely as time goes on. They wouldn't rule it out. The second largest lender in Cyprus, the Cyprus Popular Bank, they need to find 1.8 billion euros by the end of this month to meet the new capital requirements brought in by the EU to help buffer banks against the financial crisis. So it's looking more and more likely that they will need to access the EU bailout facilities potentially by the end of this month.
Now, Spain's Prime Minister Mariano Rajoy, he's been trying to restore confidence, and he's come up with some rather bold suggestions.
Yes, he, of course, his country is facing trouble borrowing on the markets. The rates of borrowing are going up and up. He's now called for a central EU authority to manage the bloc's finances, basically giving Europe, giving Brussels, more authority over national budgets. This is quite a climb down for him because, of course, just a few months ago, he was fighting with Brussels over deficit limits, and now he's saying that Brussels should have more oversight. So a real sign of a climb down in Spain and indication of how far Spain has fallen already.
Now, figures out last Friday confirm that Spain's unemployment rate is the highest in Europe. And over the weekend, 3 towns there held a vote on whether to use money usually spent on bullfighting festivals on job creation instead. The result was bad news for both bulls and the unemployed.
For the people of Guijo de Galisteo, it's a choice between bread and circuses. The local municipality in Extremadura in central Spain asked citizens to vote on whether to spend half its annual budget on jobs or bull-run fiestas. Among the local pensioners, there was strong support for jobs.
Work for the young. I told the cameras the other day that instead of having 3 or 4 bulls the day of the patron saint, just have 1. Why do you need to have all that money for so many bulls? Use it for jobs, which is what we lack.
But the young, who struggle with Spain's huge youth unemployment rate, the highest in Western Europe, are more fatalistic. They want the bulls.
Because I like the fiestas. I like the fiestas and there is never any work anyway. So I'm voting for bulls and that's it.
I voted for bulls because the fiestas attract many people and bring people to the bars. If we didn't have the bulls, hardly anyone would come here.
The jobs option would have created only temporary positions. One seasonal worker says the fiesta will kill 2 birds with a 1 stone.
The fiestas also create jobs for people. For the bull run, you need people to build the plaza. If there are no bulls, those 8 to 10 people won't have work over those 2 or 3 days.
In the end, the bulls carried the day by a margin of 3 to 1. 25% of people in the area are without jobs. They decided it was worth keeping something to get excited about.
I'm going to wrap up with a quick look at the markets.
Yeah, I'm afraid the Asian markets haven't managed to break the cycle that we've been seeing over the last few weeks now. You can see that they are all down by around 2% there. The Kospi down 2.7%, quite a drop. Of course, this is the first chance that Asian markets have had to react to that news. Disappointing news on Friday about the US unemployment situation. The unemployment rate has gone up to 8.2% there.
All right, thank you very much for that look at the day's business news. William, thank you for watching. Don't go away.